try again. A very good afternoon to everyone on frequency. This is the worldwide net operated by ZS6YI. We wish to welcome everyone on. As normal, we wish to thank the AMSAT DL team, AMSAT UK, and of course the BATC for their assistance and help and technical advice in getting the radio amateurs onto the satellite, which has kindly been provided by the Qatar Satellite Company and have allowed us space on their wonderful satellite. So we wish to thank them for that, and it is greatly appreciated. Today we have quite a nice program actually. We've got, as far as I can see so far, we've got Leon going to continue with his space program. Just a note that Leon will not be able to do it next Sunday for sure, because he's working again all week. So once again, work interferes with ham radio. But no, he's having to find from other files other bits of information that he wants to put across, and he will not have the time, unfortunately, this week. But we appreciate what you've done so far, Leon. It's been really, really fantastic. And then Ed's going to talk about the real footprint of QO-100. I'm sure he's got something new to tell us today. And of course, we must never underestimate the ingenuity of the amateur radio fraternity. We'll squeeze a signal out where nobody thought it possible. And of course, Ed, also thank you for the streaming. We're testing it today. And also to Benno for helping with the streaming as well. And also, I think it was Hans, I'm not sure. I'll see the name just now on the BATC site, also been streamed. So we really appreciate that. Then Tom, ZR6TG, will follow Ed, and he'll give us an update on his Leo antenna controller. I tell you, this thing is working very well. I've listened to some tests that Tom did, and it's well worth looking at that one as well. Martin, good morning to you, or good afternoon. And the Watchoscope, now you have me quite interested. I presume that's the clocks that you're busy with. And then Bert, Papa Alpha 3 Alpha Oscar Delta, he just said hello, but I'm sure he'll come up with something good, probably amps. And then we want to welcome Henry ZS6 Mike Charlie. This will be his first time on the net, and doing quite well, Henry, no problem. You can explain what you're doing. You don't have to keep it short. Introduce yourself to the fellas, and also what you're using and what you intend to do to even improve matters. And then there's Mike, G0 Mike Juliet Whiskey, continuing in with his little CNC machine and doing some more on the panel. That sounds good there, Mike. We look forward to that. So I give it to Leon. No, doesn't look like it. And let's just see on the other side. No, so far it looks like we're done. Okay, but if anyone comes in, we'll just slot him after Mike. With that, Leon, if you would like to take the micro, sir. ZS1 Mike to take the video and microphone from ZS6 Yankee India.
Scan and tune. Let's see. Okay, that's got it. Okay, thanks Gary. ZS6 Yankee India and the group ZS1 Mike saying good morning, good afternoon and good evening to whoever is listening and watching. Yes, it was a tight squeeze. I spoke to Gary a little earlier on the phone, and I told him that really hitting the whole thing and everything, but fortunately I found it again somewhere on the computer. And yes, okay. Today we hop from Namibia to New Zealand. So this is the ATV-1, the first of those automatic transfer vehicles that the European Space Agency produced. It's a phenomenal thing. I've mentioned it before. I think it weighs 20 tons. It could fit a double-decker bus, a normal London double-decker bus, in there quite easily. So it's a huge thing, and it was used to cart supplies and then a possible extension and build another 5. Now, unfortunately, that never happened. They built the first 5 and they launched all 5 of them, and they were all 5 of them were 100% success. But like with everything, money is a problem. I mean, it's a lot of countries contributing to that thing, but even so, it's still very, very expensive. So anyway, we were stationed in New Zealand because that is where the actual ATV, the payload, separates from the second stage of the rocket, which is very, very critical, and they wanted all that data and stuff. So we had a lovely station there. They built us proper buildings there. It was prefab type, but very nice, spacious, with a kitchen and everything. And yes, it was really by far the best place that we've ever been. Apart from being a fantastic country, oh, I fell in love with that place the moment I set my foot on the soil there on the South Island, the southern tip of the South Island, and the town is called Invercargill. And as Bert Munro says, he sometimes spells it with just one L, but it actually has 2 L's at the end. He says it saves ink if you only use 1 L. That's another story. Okay, so let's roll this thing. ATV. Okay, I'm gonna switch off the on the launch pad live via internet. So it's gonna lift off pretty soon. 6 seconds. You should hear the counting now. What's my audio? Oh, by the way, I found the fault with my clipping audio. It shouldn't be clipping anymore. It wasn't the batteries. Right. It lifted off. Now we have, it's coming about halfway around the world, so we have about 45 minutes before it reaches us. So on the left here now, just out of the picture, is Herman Steenkamp, my colleague. Way down in the back is the Frenchman who mans the 2 racks at the back, the French equipment. José Hoyarsable is his name, and this guy here with the blue is Pierre Michele Rovera. He's one of the big bosses of European Space Agency. Right, we're just about to acquire the signal. So we've waited our 45 minutes, and on the antenna control unit, you see the signal is still flashing between 0 and 1 there on the right hand side. 12. It's still minus 3 degrees below the horizon. That's our predictor. So it should be there in 3 degrees, 2.8 degrees below the horizon. Just now there should be a fluttering of RF. Azimuth is 292 degrees. I'm on receiver 1, as you see in the middle of the display. It's receiver 1 is selected. They only transmit lower left-hand circular polarization. So I'm using receiver 1 and receiver 3 on 2 different frequencies. They are transmitting on 2 different frequencies, both left-hand circular polarized signals. Okay, now we're above the horizon, no, not quite. I moved the antenna up there just to get out of the clutter. In theory, it's still minus 0.2 degrees below the horizon, but there we've got the signal, 20 dBs above the noise floor. Okay, Herman, step out of the camera. Yeah, 21 dB above the noise floor, and we are in auto track now. So this is not pointing like you guys do with the Leos. This is, you can take away all the computers. This thing is now sniffing the RF coming from that thing and auto tracking it. It's now switched to receiver 3. It will toggle between 3 and 1. It all depends. It's controlled by the AGC. There for a moment it was on receiver 2, but there's back on receiver 1, which is the LCP receiver. Receiver 2 is RCP. But we found that the RCP signal and the LCP signals were just about the same for some other inexplicable reason. Right, we're now at the maximum elevation, 58 degrees, and going down. I just fast forwarded the thing because it takes long. It's a long pass. Now you'll see that it will go down slowly, and the error bar graphs, there's no tracking errors. Those two black horizontal bars on the middle of the screen, you can hardly see the center LED there. Whereas with a Delta rocket, which spins, and it makes tracking very, very difficult, this thing doesn't spin. It's stable, and you can just now and then see the little bit of movement there on the bar graphs there, the elevation and the azimuth. There you can see a little bit of liveliness there. Okay, that's the end of the pass. Just about. We're at minus 0.2 degrees elevation already, so that's the end. There's still a bit of RF going through. Right. That's LOS, loss of signal. That's the end. And now there the Frenchman says, now it's time to open the champagne, because the mandatory part of the launch support is separation of the spacecraft. So we're having some champagne, waiting for the rocket, the actual thing that is separated. The ATV is now on its way to the space station, but the rocket is still following it. So now it has to go 90 minutes before it will go over us again. When it passes over Kourou, they talk to it and they tell it, no, you must fire some rockets and start tumbling so that you can deorbit and fall back to Earth and burn out. So that's another 90 minutes that we have to wait now. And in the meantime, we're having some champagne to celebrate the perfect tracking and excellent data from the separation. And Pierre is battling to get the champagne off, the cork off, but he managed. Ah, there he's got it. And paper cups from his hotel where he lives. He lived in a different hotel to us, because they're only there for a very short period. We were there for several weeks. So that's the first orbit of ATV, perfect launch, and they're very happy with everything that happened. So now we'll skip fast forward again, and there we're now waiting for the second stage to come again, and they have just gone into auto track. Now you'll notice that now the thing is tumbling. So then I get the one antenna, the one frequency, and then the other one. There it's receiver 1 now, and it'll tumble again. There it's receiver 3 now. And you can see on the spectrum display it's going up and down as the thing tumbles, which means that it did receive the command when it passed over Kourou, and it is busy deorbiting now. You'll also see that the Earth is also turned in the 90 minutes. So whereas we had 65 degrees maximum elevation on the first pass, this second pass, the maximum elevation is much lower. Because the Earth had turned underneath this thing, and we're not sitting where we were for the first pass. So, okay, 2.6 elevation, 2.7, it's still going up. But then I fast forwarded the tape again to the maximum elevation of this pass. I think you can still clearly see on the spectrum analyzer, and it's actually slowing down. The tumbling is slowing down. I checked how many seconds it took in the beginning, and then later I saw it takes longer time to do the thing. Still tumbling. Okay, that's maximum elevation now, 12.6 degrees. Compared to the 65 odd of the first orbit. So yeah, that thing is just still going, and this is frequency diversity. As I say, we're tracking on receiver 1 and receiver 3. They're both left-hand circular polarization, but two different frequencies, so it's alternating between the two. And so it's coming down. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to do any footage of the assembly of the station at this stage. I took lots of still pictures, but not any video. Maybe at a later stage I'll draw in some of the still pictures, and you can see how in that cold place we assemble that 3-meter antenna. It's the same one we used at Vega in French Guiana, the same antenna. Not the Namibian one, not that big one, that can't fly. Okay, 6.6 degrees elevation, receiver 3, receiver 1. Still a strong signal, between 17 and 20 dB above the noise floor. You can see I've lowered the threshold a little bit to 8 dBs above the noise floor for automatic acquisition. And there we're at the end. That's LOS again, and that's the end of the mission. So now we're at the hotel at, I think it was in José's room, and we are having a little bit of a celebration there and a nice dinner and so on, which he cooked. He's a typical Frenchman, he can cook. So that is it, ATV1 in short. Right, so that's it from ZS1 Mike.
Okay guys, hello, hi everybody, it's Ed, Papa Yankee 2 Radio November here, try to do multitasking, never been my forte. Yeah, sorry for the long image, the universal converter box. That's an idea for Mike Zero, Mike Juliet Whiskey, so maybe he can deploy something. Mainly the one that transforming to gas. Okay, yeah guys, yeah, I having all kinds of different delays here because I'm streaming to the YouTube at the same time I'm transmitting here. I don't even know if everything is working fine because I have like several windows open here, and I confess I cannot coordinate everything at the same time. It's a little crazy to participate in the net and also at the same time streaming to YouTube. But anyways, great presentation, Leon. Thank you very much for one more of this. Very interesting. I wish to say thank you for that, and yeah, as long as you find those videos that keep coming, it's beautiful. All right, guys. Last week, I think it was last week, we got Gustavo, Papa Radio 8 Kilo Whiskey. He made a vacation tour by Uruguay, and I took the opportunity to make some. To capture some photographs and a video that he posted, and also just would like to compare the real QO-100 footprint. So let me try to switch to the little movie here I made. Okay, yeah. So this one is the original and the released coverage for QO-100. It shows up to 5 degrees. So now you can realize Gustavo was in the location which the elevation indicates minus 0.4 degrees in Uruguay. So if we go, say that's Gustavo. with I don't even know if my narration is yeah, it's okay. So that's Gustavo with his setup, and that shows the next image shows the 0 degree the 0 degree elevation footprint of QO-100. So it covers much more than that original picture that shows only up to 5 degrees. And actually, Gustavo was outside even from the 0 degrees green line. That's quite interesting. You will see he was in this grid, Golf Fox 25. Yeah, that was the grid he was operating from, Golf Fox 25. As you can see, it's outside the green line. So he was in that region, around that region on the beach. And that was impressive because his signal was, he suffered with a lot of QSB on his reception. But it's well outside the green line, the 0 degree. So that's very impressive. He's set up and a little movie for him operating from there. Hope you guys can listen to the audio. Yep, that's it. So very interesting. So people that is, surrounding that 0 degrees, line, please try to reach up to QO-100 because you have a great chance to be successful. Okay, that's it from my side. I hope everything went okay and you guys could hear me and see me. This is POA2RN with experimental streaming to YouTube. Hopefully Gary will get his station set up for the YouTube streaming, and so maybe it's autonomous station streaming will gonna be much easier to everyone. Okay, thank you very much. Now I'm gonna leave with Tom, Zulu Radio 6 Tango Golf 73 to everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, goes to show you can you can go quite far and still get onto the satellite. So I'm keen to see which stations is going to jump on there. But yeah, good hello to everybody, and from wherever you're listening and whatever time of day it is. Hope everybody is well. Thanks Gary for running the net as usual, and Leon, really enjoyed the video again today, especially the RF tracking was quite interesting. Like you say, most like the Leo stations that I've been playing with, it's all just calculations, and the RF tracking might make for quite an interesting experiment. Okay, so on with the show. I've got a few pictures and a small little video. So you guys will remember about 2 weeks ago when I was on the net, I started out with the Leo satellite station, and boy, it's been a busy 2 weeks. Let me show you guys. Let's go here and yeah. Okay, so just to recap, that's where I left you guys last time. Antennas were up, rotators were up, and I hacked together a small little controller in Node Thread, and had a little dashboard going. And yeah, for the better part, it was going okay, and I was quite chuffed with myself with that little setup. And yeah, boom, 3 days later, this is what my workshop looked like. So as you can see, that is the azimuth rotator, all in bits and pieces. So I essentially had two issues with the azimuth rotator. One, it's one of the Ham 4 rotators, which originally they've got a brake inside. So if you want to control it manually, then you basically hold down the brake release, and then you choose the direction, and then run it like that. In my hacking or modifying of the controller, I thought I was being smart and just kept the solenoid disabled by applying power to it, at least for the duration of the pass. Otherwise, as it was tracking satellites, you would get that cluck cluck noise every time from the brake. And somewhere along the line, I obviously left the brake disabled too long, and the solenoid that pulls the little brake plate actually burned out. I don't know if it's 100% because I left it on too long, or if it was just age. Bottom line, it was not working anymore, and the brake was interlocked. So down the whole station had to come, and I basically started stripping the rotator. I don't need the brake for this setup, purely because the two antennas I've got on there are so light. So I decided to just strip out the brake completely. You'll see next to the rotator there's a little plate lying. It's basically what locked straight into the gearing when the brake release is disabled. So that was the one problem. The second problem was that I tried to read an analog value from the rheostat coming from the rotator. Unfortunately, the rheostat is all common grounded with the AC of the motors, so you can imagine it turned into quite a story. And even though I did get a nice voltage from it to be able to measure, it was A, very noisy, and B, it wasn't very linear. So after some internet research, I found out some of the guys basically isolate the rheostat from the rest of it. So part of that opening it up was also to remove the rheostat's connection to anything grounded inside there. So instead of one rheostat wire coming out of there, I essentially had two, but it would isolate the rheostat completely then. The advantage of the brake controller, or the brake section, not working anymore was that I had more space to bring out extra wires via the 8-core wire that's coming down. So all in all, it's basically what happened. So the station went back up, and this is essentially the controller as I hacked it together. It's very simple. I didn't spend too much time on making it a encoder that would interface with anything specific. I rather spent the time to basically just make it all nice and accurate. So you'll see there's Arduino Uno and a couple of relays. With the rheostat now being separated from the controller, it was very simple to read it. It was connected up to 5 volt, got a nice clean analog signal, and it was nice and linear as well. And the two relays are essentially wired up to the clockwise and counterclockwise signals from the rotator. Currently you'll see the board is still mounted on top of the rotator, although essentially everything's been removed out of there except for the transformer that provides the power for the rotator. So the box isn't actually necessary anymore. Everything's now running on the Arduino, but I'm keeping it like that for now until I've got a nice decent box that I can put both of them in. The elevation rotator was a lot simpler. The rheostat was already isolated or separate from the AC side of the motors there, so exactly the same board that I used for the elevation rotator. I wanted to keep it two separate rotator controllers, mostly that if there does something go wrong with one of them, then it's a lot simpler to swap out one than trying to hack it back into the other one. My whole controller is obviously run from the Node-RED, and it's been updated. A little dashboard's been updated quite a bit. I added in a couple of rotator presets. I've got a map where it can turn nicely, the little arrow on the map will point into where the rotator is pointing, and I've basically implemented the rod control server that the guys usually use for rotator inside Node-RED, and which means my Arduino is very simple. The Arduino code was very simple, where it's literally just reading the values and sending it over the serial port and receiving the commands. All the smarts is on the Node-RED side itself. And yeah, it seems to be working quite well, and I can also control it from other applications like gpredict and setPC32. The whole reason I went with the Node-RED setup was purely to be able to have it on my tablet. So I can go outside, control the rotator from there, or sit by the radio. It's very responsive, works very well, and yeah, really happy with that. Again, all of this was done in Node-RED. There's actually the Node-RED flow. As you can see, it's quite simple. There's a TCP/IP server listening for connections from gpredict and setPC32 and programs like that, and then it will basically control the two different Arduinos that are connected to it. If anybody's interested in this, I can definitely put it up on the net somewhere, not a problem. So one of the big reasons of wanting to do this LEO satellite station was not just so much for making contacts over the FM and linear sats, but I'm also very interested in receiving telemetry from various satellites. So this was one of my successes, where I received a signal from the Inspire 1 satellite, which was actually launched on the 13th, or became active on the 13th of February 2022. So I'm quite happy that that worked quite well. I still need to set up a few bits of software to actually be able to decode the telemetry on that, but the signals are coming in nice and strong. So while I was busy with all of this, I actually was a bit frustrated with the current satellite programs, gpredict and setPC32. They all worked, they're decent packages, they all worked so well, but they all had a thing that was missing. Mostly the one is Windows based, the other one is also Windows based, but the one I could only run on Windows PCs. Neither one of them could really be ran on my tablet itself. Updating TLEs and managing TLEs became a bit of a pain, and the setPC32 worked better on the ICOM radio, but the gpredict worked best on the rotator, so it was all over the place. So I started developing my own little satellite tracking server. It's a little Raspberry Pi. It has a web interface, and it basically, I'll do a short demo, a live one just now, but it basically allows me to keep all the TLE easily be accessible from any PC or tablet. And I've got the rotator control from this working now as well. It basically ties into the Node-RED, which is running on the same Pi. And then the next part I'm busy with is the radio control that I want to put in there as well. It's still very much a work in progress, but if anybody's interested and want to play with it, I did put it up on GitHub. Like I say, expect it to break and not work properly while I'm still ironing out the bugs and playing around with it. But yeah, it's been a fun little project so far. And then yeah, that's basically all my little photos. Let me just show you. I've got the satellite server open up here. I hope you guys can make it out clearly. But so essentially it shows all the satellites, and I can basically go click on the various satellites that it's showing there, and it will basically show orbit path all the way up to the next pass over here soon. But if you look at that, the Bobcat satellite and its orbital routes, and if you look at something like the Inspire set, you can see the different orbits that these satellites are in. There's another one that's going to pass over here quick soon. It's also a nice view. So I just love the little view going there. Let's see, I think the ISS is about to, yeah, it's going to come over there now. So you'll see on the right side I've got a little polar plot as well, and then the ISS is still below the horizon. Sorry. But yeah, the polar chart will show as the satellite goes as well, and I've got a basic rotator control on the bottom right. Like I say, I hope it comes clear on the picture there, but you guys get the idea. And then finally, a little treat for the eyes, or what I'd like to call the amateur radio version of watching paint dry. I've got a nice little video of the rotator up and going, so enjoy this. Okay, cool. And that's basically me. It's what I've been busy with the last 2 weeks, and yeah, it's been fun, and it's a work in progress station, but it's getting there. Okay, let's see who's next here. Martin. Sorry, I think I was over a bit too long today, but I hope you guys enjoyed that. Over to Martin there. Golf 4 FKK here from Zulu Romeo 6 Tango Golf.
Yeah, brilliant, Tom. G4 Foxtrot Kilo returning, and very good afternoon to everyone. Going to quickly check my sync. Hang on. Right, I've been playing about with that because I've been using OBS for other things during the week. Anyway, very good, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone who's watching, possibly further away than we thought, Ed, following Gustavo's expedition there. That'd be quite interesting, and that'd be quite a nice holiday for you, Ed, to travel all around Brazil and find where you can get into. I wonder if you can get into it from Ubatuba. I've got relatives at Ubatuba. Anyway, Leon, thank you for your guided tour of the ATV-1 gadgetry in New Zealand. I wonder, because the elevation of the satellite is a prediction, presumably. I think you said it was. So, do you get nervous as it gets nearer and nearer that it's actually going to capture it, or are you so used to that it doesn't bother you at all? And I'm glad to see the champagne being served in proper engineering paper cups. But yeah, very interesting. I also wonder, Gary, if you've come across an English guy called John Yates. He's quite big in various bits of the satellite industry. I'm not sure which bits, to be honest, but I did work with him for a while when I was on Das Media. Ed, like the cartoon, I wonder if you get pressured trying to find a new one every week. And yeah, I'm going to be attempting some multitasking in a minute too, and a live demonstration, which never goes well, does it? But we'll see how that gets on. And yeah, and I've already mentioned Gustavo's trip there. Tom, I can't get over your setup there. 2 weeks? That would have taken me 2 months. I similarly had to repair a similar rotator several years ago, and I lost 3 of the ball bearings, but luckily a very good friend of mine, Peter G3RQZ, had a bag of spare ones because he'd gone through the same trauma. So I've now got a small bag of spare ball bearings for the Yaesu rotators if you ever need one. But yeah, very impressed with all the software and the how you've blended it all together. I think is probably beyond me. I've heard of Node-RED, but I don't really know what it does. So that's how far behind I am, Tom. So brilliant. And I'm guessing from the video that it tracks it automatically I missed your first demonstration a couple of weeks ago. I was out and about. I've made a note of your GitHub page, so I might have a look, more in hope than experience of anything like that. Well, I have been doing some electronics this week. As you know, I've been interested in fixing clocks, and I'm on to my first watch now. But one of the things that's quite useful, and most of the guys on YouTube have got, is an analyzer that can analyze the ticks and the tocks and tell you all sorts of various useful information if you're trying to fix and then adjust a watch or a clock. So I decided I needed one of those. There's a bit of software called Phonoscope, and basically all you do is plug a microphone into it and off it goes. But the microphone is a bit more specific. And Mike, you'll be pleased to see I've gone over to purple boards. There's the board on the bench. That's I've called it Watcho Tune, but it's not very complicated. It's a 9-volt battery over here somewhere, and a 4 op amp chip with a lot of gain, and then one of these funny little piezoelectric transducers. They're the sort of same thing you get in birthday cards and Christmas cards. So they're very, very thin, and you can use them as an output transducer or an input transducer. So that's what we use here. So I'm now going to attempt the live demo. Oh, by the way, Mike, I have got LEDs on it, but it's a plug-in one, and there you go, just to show. And I unplugged it for the demo because it just dazzles the camera. Right, so if I move that over there slightly and find a watch movement, one that I prepared earlier. Let's get that in shot a bit better. Oop. You shouldn't really handle watch movements without finger cots or gloves on. So this is a very cheap Ingersoll movement that I bought from eBay to practice taking watch movements. And that really is tiny. That's the size of my finger. Apologies about the nails, but I'm a guitarist, so I have long nails on the right hand and short nails on the left hand. Anyway, so the watch at the moment just sits on the transducer. I'm going to make a little frame for that. Right, sorry, no audio. That happened last time, didn't it? Let me put some audio on. Audio input capture, add existing Jabra headset. Right, sorry, Mike. Right, that should be more like it. So this is the Watchoscope. What I was saying before, you take level in scope mode, and now it's in analyzing mode. So there's two traces here. One is the tick, effectively, and one is the tock. And the software tells you how fast or slow the clock is running. So at the moment it's losing about 15 seconds a day, which is not bad for an ancient eBay thing. The amplitude is 184 degrees, that's how far the balance wheel is twanging left and right. And the beat error, it's not just a tick and a tock, there's all sorts of other noises watches and clocks make. Anyway, there you go. I'll put it back there and I'll put it back here. you've probably had enough from me about watches and clocks, so I'll try and think of something more radio based next time. But in the meantime, I shall put it round to Bert, who's probably got some nice amplifiers to show us. So Bert, get your push to talk ready. Papa Alpha 3 Alpha Oscar Delta. This is Golf 4 Foxtrot Kilo Kilo, standing by with a test card.
Let's see. Yeah, okay. Video there, and audio is also there. Okay. Oh, I see. Suddenly, 3 megahertz. That's a very wide signal. Okay. Okay. What can we do about this? Not always amplifiers, Martin. But I can show you the amplifiers what it ended with. I can show you. This is the power supply and the 70 centimeters power amplifier, and that's all working now. And on top of it, there will be then the 2 meter and the 23 centimeters amplifiers. So this is the start, and probably also for the shortwave bands will also be included. So 3 more cabinets will be added for all the amplifiers. Did not much last week, only started yesterday again with doing some work. And I found my old AM transmitter. That's from Minikits. That's an Australian firm. Yeah, so this way. That's a company from Australia. It's a Minikit. It's 70 centimeters AM modulation. We're still using, as I told you before, we're still using here AM ATV next to the DATV. But that was for the TV. The other things, yeah, not too much work over here. I saw anyway, Martin, that must be a very powerful watch then. I saw on the top screen it was 18,000 bhp, brake horsepower. So that must be a very strong watch then. And yeah, the work you did, Tom, is very nice. And that indeed, what Marty said, in 2 weeks' time, that was marvelous. It's more software than hardware. And yeah, I got the same antennas over here, the X watts from Wemo for 70 centimeters and 2 meters. There's a guy in Germany, I can't remember his call sign, but he's also has a nice website with all information about the telemetry from all the satellites who can receive over here in the Netherlands. So, yeah, maybe you know it, otherwise I can find it for you. And he has also some software for decoding all the telemetry. Yeah, from the Leon, I was curious, what frequencies are you using for all those satellites for the communication? Is that UHF or SAF or what? I'm curious about what frequency it is in use. And the other things I played a little bit with this for an we call it a transverter for 10 meter and probably also for 50 megahertz for 6 meter. You can use a standard oscillator, or I'm planning also to use this little thing. That's an ADF 4350 and LO. So it's, yeah, you can also connect it to the Potsdam. I've not tested it to Potsdam, but no, that has to be done also. Work in progress. But for the rest of the week, we had a lot of wind over here and rain. Yeah, you can see, maybe you can show it. It's the terrible weather at the moment over here. It's raining. The tower is down. I didn't myself, the tower down, because there was too much wind and I did not trust it. Removed the shortwave beam, and okay, I hope it will be put up again, yeah, somewhere in the mid of the next week. because the coming few days there's also a lot of wind and rain. And yeah, okay, let's see, that was in the list. ZS6MC, that's a new kid on the block, as we said. Henry, the system is yours. Back to South Africa, from the Netherlands, from Papa Alpha 3, Alpha Oscar Delta.
Okay, just make sure that let's just make sure I'm getting out of it. Right here. Alright, I think there might be a bit of a delay between my lips and my voice, so please forgive me for that. And my laptop at the present moment is an 8 GB RAM top. So hopefully by the end of this month I will have the new one with 40 GB and with the proper graphics card and the proper CPU and so on and so forth. So thank you very much, guys, for allowing me in today. I do appreciate it. And I just right up front want to say thank you to Gary for assisting me. This has been a project in 3 months. So I started off with obtaining the mini tuner and the parts from DATV. It took 6 weeks to get to the country here and finally received it in my hands. I was rather concerned that it might get lost because I forgot to tick the box which says track. So I was sort of, by the grace of the good man above, I think it arrived in my hands. And obviously I made it extremely difficult for myself. I got parts from all over the show, from DigiKey, from our own suppliers here in South Africa. But finally it all came together, and I was able to see you and watch you on DATV on this particular frequency for at least a month. And then I started with the transmit side. Got all excited, but that is a beast all on its own, as you can understand. And I thank God for Gary, and he has been able to assist me with his workshop, or in his workshop. In fact, Gary is very hands-on. Never realized it, and he did a lot of the work himself. So it was really very neat to watch. And we tested everything, made sure the amplifier is operational and it was running, and that we had the right power outputs and so on and so forth. Besides that, I must say that I'm finding this particular net extremely interesting. I'm finding that I'm learning a lot, and it sure as heck is making my synapses knit together, and especially with some of the stuff that has been done here by Tom. Tom, that is really interesting stuff that you've been busy with, and that you did it in 2 weeks, as Martin said. Absolutely amazing. So yes, nice to meet you all. Nice to meet Leon. I've spoken to Leon, and Leon has been kind enough to give me a big chunk of aluminium on which the amplifier was placed. And of course, I've spoken to Ed as well on SSB. So it was nice to meet you there, Ed, and now to meet you here. And besides that, Martin, you must have serious fine motor skills to make sure that everything fits together in that watch. I don't think I can even see some of those parts. But anyway, well done, and nice to know that you're a musician as well. Yeah, I play the bass guitar. That's my passion. And started when I was in grade I think Form 8, as you call it in the UK, and been at it, but on and off, unfortunately, did not keep it going completely. Yeah, so that is where I am at the present moment, and nice to meet you all. And hopefully in 2 weeks' time I'll be on with far better signal quality, video-wise, and certainly a better audio signal. And Yes, thank you very much for allowing me in on your net, Gary and team, and look forward to the next one. So I'll pass it over to you,
Okay, thanks, Henry. That was really, really good, actually. A very good transmission. No problems at all. So, really excellent. And the only thing is you cut yourself just a little bit before the end because of the latency. You have to allow yourself some time after you've finished speaking to drop the carrier. But easy to forget. Anyway, lots of really interesting things today, and it was fascinating to see all that stuff that Leon was talking about. It always is. So very good. Thank you for that, Leon. And Ed, coverage below zero. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? We know UHF and SHF signals do go beyond the horizon. So that would work. And also elevation, I think. So if there's a mountain that happens to be just below the horizon from the satellite's point of view, I guess if you're on top of it, you might be above the satellite horizon when you're on the mountain. But lots of QSB because of the very low angle, and that's a well-known issue when you have a very low elevation angle. They used to have it in Svalbard when they relied on a satellite link. They had a very low elevation angle, so they would get lots of variation. So all really interesting. And Tom, your rotator problems, yeah, it burnt out the brake. But you don't want it going clunk, clunk every second. It'll really annoy the neighbours, won't it? So I can see why you did that. Very good. But you did remind me of something which I will come on to. I'll show a few other things in a minute. But I was also looking at satellite tracking stuff. So I built this a few years ago. And I don't know if you can see that, whether it's coming out or not. But that was my satellite tracking system. It was just to play with, really. It's just an Arduino Mega, and unfortunately, because I'm not using the full prediction, it needs relatively recent caps. But as long as the caps are within a few days, then it's accurate enough anyway. Tell you when the next pass is, and it's telling me the next pass of the ISS is not for some time. In fact. It reckons it's at 0427 tomorrow. Whether that's right or not, I don't know, but probably not far out because I uploaded the caps for that one. I haven't used it for so long that the battery's gone flat, and the not very good real-time clock is completely inaccurate anyway. So you can do it on an Arduino. Right, okay, what else was there? Martin, watches and purple. Yeah, well, purple PCB, very good, I approve of that. The latest set of PCBs I've just ordered for the power amplifier controller will be purple, now that I've finalised the design. And I guess what I advertised I would talk about was this thing, so let's come on to that. This is the panel that I did, so you can see the prototype there for the power amplifier, and on Benchcam is the control panel in aluminium that I milled yesterday, and it worked, and it was milled with this thing. So let me just come on to that. So that is a standard, really cheap CNC mill, and it could do that. It took a while, and there was some experimentation. So this is the first time I've done this, and when I started out, I had to make a few tests and trials, and unfortunately I managed to break a 1mm end mill, which is sitting there just below my call sign, because I was going too fast. This particular type of aluminium that I used was a piece of scrap that I had. It's very, very soft. It's not very good for doing something like a front panel on, and it was I just put it in there to see if it would do it, and it did. So that's the reason that the amplifier panel itself is not square to the stock. It was just thrown in there and let it to run. The only thing I did find was that although I could mill out the slots and the holes relatively well in this type of very soft aluminium, the lettering didn't really come out very well. So I think using more harder aluminium will probably work fine, but that's something to be worked on. But it's we're getting there, so that's why I said progress. Not bad. What else? The tower, Bert, my tower is down as well. They were both taken down on Thursday in anticipation of the very high winds we had here on Friday. There was some damage here. My wheelie bin blew over, so that's what we ended up with. But it could have been much worse because the wind was very, very high and there were some trees down locally. So definitely worth taking precautions when these storms come through. Only other thing that I've got to talk about is these bits and pieces here, which, I don't know if you can see that. This is a piece of surplus stuff called a Dolphin PA, which arrived, thank you Mark, this week. And it's a 77's amplifier, but these are some of the bits inside that are not required, and it's just incredible the number of chips and all the bits and pieces that they put into these things, which basically were just simple, well, maybe not simple, but very complicated, I guess. Base stations that we've been scrapped, and it was only built in 1999, and they've been scrapped for at least 10 years. So it was good to get that. Anyway, this is what's called a Dolphin amplifier, and if I could persuade the Polycom to come back on, I can probably, if I zoom out, show you what they look like, because there's one on the floor next to it. There we go. You can just about see that. You can see the panel there as well. But this is a stripped down Dolphin amplifier. Is it going to focus? Yeah, there we go. So that's what we're talking about. And they will give about 200 watts of SSB, but because they're highly linear amplifiers, the plan is, or the hope is, that it'll give it about 50 watts on 77's DATV, which may or may not be of interest to various people. So with that, and really great to see Henry. Oh, and sorry about the part shortage when you're building mini tuners these days, and it gets even worse if you try and build a winter hill. It's a problem. I don't know when we're going to get out of this, but it really is getting difficult. And it's good to see that Gary is hands-on with their help and doing all the machining and work himself. He's very talented at this. He tempted us with lots of really, really interesting stuff in the early days of this net that he'd been working on. Perhaps we'll see some of the other things that he's been working on since. I don't know. Right, with that, I think it is over to Gary, isn't it? So Gary, let me just put up my test card. ZS6YI G0MJW. Let me just put up my test card. ZS6YI.
Okay, Mike, let's see if I come on. This is ZS6YI returning. Fine. Well, that was a very interesting session. And yeah, also keeping it more or less to the hour. That's fine. And we'll just have a quick run round again. But yeah, indeed. Firstly, Martin, thanks for wrapping it up so nicely. Couldn't say it better myself. Now, you always have that knack of taking note of what's going on. And so it's nice to get you on the other end, and it makes life easier for me. But anyway, Leon, yeah, that's very, very interesting again. Thank you so much for that. And we look forward to not next week, but hopefully the week after next. Then you'll have a bit of time again. You know, it's crazy that work has to interfere with ham radio. Like Tom, I can vouch that he definitely did it in actually less than 2 weeks to be fair, but he packs about a month into 2 weeks, you see. So, but very, very good there, Tom and Ed. Yeah, that was fascinating. That shall we say extra footprint, really, really fascinating, and makes sense that on the lower frequencies, in other words, the uplink, you could get a bit of bending, but on 10 gigs starts to get really line of sight. So perhaps that's why the fading is there. But that was very interesting. I already anticipated some of my friends in Perth perhaps coming in, but looks like they won't make it. Yeah, I have commented on Tom. No, that's a great piece of work there, and it's really working to plan and to well. And I'm glad you're also changing the programs, rewriting things so that it's just a one-stop shop type of thing. That's now coming into the 21st century for sure. And then Martin, that was fascinating with the clock. Yeah, you know, I wonder what will happen if you put it on your heartbeat. But yeah, many applications for that little purple board you got there. Yeah, I don't know if I like the purple side. I like the blue ones, but perhaps we'll get used to it. But very, very good indeed, and interesting. Never thought of doing that with an audio device. I suppose that's about the right way to do it, hey? Bert, always good to see you. And yeah, it was bad storms in your part of the world, in Germany, as well as in London. Now, I don't believe what I read in one of the news items, that the wind speed in London, okay, I believe this, that it is the highest they've ever had on record. That I believe. But they talked about 192 miles an hour. That's just over 300 odd kilometers an hour. That sounds a little bit, I think the guy meant kilometers an hour, to be fair. But yeah, horrendous. And the guys were trying to fly into Heathrow. And hey, I'm glad my daughter's only flying back tomorrow evening. Natalie's going back home on tomorrow evening. So yeah, it was lovely having her here for the few days. And Henry, congratulations, my dear friend. You've done very well indeed, and also in a relatively short space of time. You didn't let grass grow under your feet at all. And yeah, Henry's setup is remote control, basically, using a LAN connector right to near the dish, because he had too much losses. Was probably about maybe even 9-10 dB loss on the coax, although we calculated 6. But he's now got a good signal, all good. And all that Henry needs to now do is just replace the computer. He's got an old laptop that he's playing with, and I'm surprised you squeezed out what you did, Henry. So great stuff. Just a bit of background. Henry was one of the first guys with the Vodacom telephone, cell phone systems in South Africa way back in about 1993, those days. And he still does a bit of consulting work and so forth. And he's an expert on networking, setting up complete telephone networks all over the place. Was in Nigeria, had to drive around with a guard looking after him with a machine gun. Hey, quite a hairy story. But that's a bit of background to Henry there. So we're pleased to have you on board, Henry, and I'm sure we'll learn a lot about networking and other nice devices. And Mike, once again, fascinating over from your side. Thank you very much. It was interesting to see what you did and your experiences on the milling machine. Yeah, I must just cut down on the speed. I know a guy gets in a hurry. And you're quite right. If you go for duralium, or if you ever cast your own aluminium, you just put a little bit of copper, around about maybe 6 or 7% of copper into the aluminium, and you get a very tough aluminium that you can engrave quite nicely. You might have remembered, I don't engrave aluminium anymore with the milling machine. I rather use a laser engraver. You spray like a Teflon coating over it, and it engraves very, very fine engraving, and you can't get it off. That's what I did. I've got something else on it now. That's what I did with that little unit I built earlier the year for the Pluto. So that's another way of doing it. But anyway, engraving is nice. And then what we normally do is we take, let's say, black paint or something, and we just lay it on and wait for it to get semi-dry, and then we take a very hard sponge, or a cloth even, a little bit of thinners, and you just wipe it over the lettering. And what happens, but you just must make sure that your cloth or your sponge doesn't go into the cavities. You just wipe it over the lettering, and it takes all the excess away, and it comes up crisp, very crisp and very nice. So that's the advantage of engraving it, by the way. Right, with that, I'm going to pass it back to Leon, if we can go through the list, and then I'll also close the station just after. ZS1 to grab the micro from, sorry about bumping the mic, from Zulu Sierra 6 Yankee India.
Okay, Gary. ZS6 Yankee India and the whole group, ZS1 Mike returning for comments. Yes, all very interesting. Ed, yes, very interesting about the footprint, that it's that wide. Yeah, a little bit of refraction and so on, but yes. And Gustavo was like almost at sea level. He wasn't even on a mountain top, so that's very well done. I wonder how it goes on the other side, on the eastern side, to past India. Okay, Tom, excellent job there. Good heavens, that pointing system, very, very neatly done. I've never heard of the programs that you're mentioning there. I was trying to think what we are using. I know we download the two-line elements and we plug it in there. But what the name? We used to use Orbits 2 way back when, but then we found that it hasn't got enough decimals. Because of our antennas, the size, the beam width is rather narrow, so you have to be better than 0.1 degree really, or at least 0.1 degree. So yeah, but very nicely done, very professionally done. Nice. Right, Martin, the slaving source. Okay, on a station like ours, the client normally gives us a table, a prediction table of at such and such a time it will be there, you know, that elevation, that azimuth. They give us that way in advance because they know how they're going to shoot this thing. That we put into our computer. Then we also have real-time slaving data coming via internet, which we also plug into the computer. So we have two slaving sources, a real-time one, because they update it as their tracking instruments on at the launch pad, as they track it, they update it, and we get the updated version live, and the table that they've sent us maybe a week or two before. And then, of course, once we've got it, we don't need any of that anymore. We auto track, genuine RF auto tracking. So that's what we use. Now, your transducer, I did a similar thing. It's very dusty and very dirty now. There it sits. I took a piece of thick-walled steel pipe, brazed the bottom closed with a piece of probably 2mm steel, and fitted the transducer in there, mounted a mini jack socket in it. And why did I do this? Because many years ago, just as an experiment, I tried to incubate some quail eggs, miniature Chinese, I think it's Chinese quails, those tiny little birds. My uncle used to have a big cage full of those things, and he gave me some eggs. And I used this thing, my homemade incubator and everything, because I wanted to know which eggs were dead, you know, duds. So this is what I built this thing many years, probably more than 30 years ago. I call this my phonoscope. It's not an oscilloscope, it's a phonoscope. It's just a high gain audio amp. Now if I switch it on, and you'll hear, if I just touch, and the volume is very low, if I turn it up, it'll start making feedback. There you are. So what did I do? Take the egg out of the incubator, put it on here. This was standing on a brick, standing on some soft material to isolate it from the surroundings because it's very sensitive. And then you could hear the heartbeat of the unborn little chick inside the egg. So I could, you know, chuck out all the dud ones and only carry on incubating the ones that's got a heartbeat. So I did the same as you. Yes, I know you could buy ones for watches, a little gadget. All the watchmakers here in Worcester had them, and you just put a watch on it and it would go cluck, 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 cluck. And it had a little paper graph that tells you whether it's too high or too low, and so on. Okay, that's Martin's transducer. Yeah, these piezo transducers. I buy them on eBay, a stack of 100. They're very cheap. You're supposed to use screened wire like I do. Hey? You're not supposed to use twisted open pair. You can get hum. Okay, Bert. Yeah, your 70 centimeter amp. That looks very nice. That looks very nice. And I like your AM TV transmitter. Yeah, it's a pity we don't have any activity there here in South Africa. It's a great pity. So yeah, I'm still trying my best to get something going. The satellite frequencies, all launch vehicles operate in S-band, which is 2.2 to 2.3 gigs in that area. I think one of the frequencies we used there was 2218 or 2218.5, I can't remember. But it's always in that area. And as I say, 99% of the time it's FM, wideband FM. Because we run different bit rates. There we were running, I think, 1 megabit, so the IF was 2 megs wide, 2.2 meg wide IF on the receiver. Well, that fits it in just nicely with the sidebands. So yes, S-band, just below the input of QO-100. Right, that's Bert. Henry, yeah, welcome, and I'm glad to see you got rid of the echo as well. Your audio is straight now. It's still very narrow, very telephonically, but I'm sure that'll come right. I don't know what microphone you're using and so on, but yeah, excellent. No glitches, no jumping, no freezing. Gee whiz, if I just think of all the interrupts I had on my first 100 transmissions, I must say, oh, it was terrible. So you're doing excellent. Okay, and Mike, yeah, the Dolphin amp, I've heard of them, but of course we don't have them here in South Africa. But yeah, gee whiz, they really have gone overboard with all those chips controlling this thing. Good heavens. Okay, and the milling machine, yes, I must try mine again. You know, I don't even know what software I used to drive the thing. Which computer? I think it was this one, the one I'm using for receiving now. I think it was this one. Definitely not the transmit one because I didn't have it at that time. But yeah, very interesting. And you're doing a fine job there with that. Your stuff's always so neat and perfect. Okay, that's it from me. Ed, I give it back to you. And I say cheerio to everybody. 73's from ZS1 Mike, but I'll still listen to the end.
Okay, guys, it's me back, Papa Yankee 2 Radio November. A great net today, amazing, great presentations. I wish to say thank you first to Gary for coordinating the net. Leon, always very nice information and presentations. Tom, Zulu Radio 6 Tango Golf, excellent, very nice to see your work on the tracking system for the Leos. I do enjoy the Leos, and I think it's great. So thank you for all the information, Martin. Amazing your work with the clocks and all the tools that you use to fix and check them. Congratulations for your dedication to the clocks. It's really nice. And Bert, great professional job on the amplifier as always. Yes, like I used to say, I mean, I think in Holland they start teaching about power amplifiers to the kids in kindergarten maybe, because you know, the Papa Alpha stations, they always come up with very great assemblies, very nice. I wish to say welcome to Henry, Zulu Sierra 6 Mike Charlie. A great transmission. Nice to see you for the first time here on the net, and you're very welcome. And Mike, those Dolphin amplifiers, it seems they made an amplifier out of FPGAs, because all the board that you showed us, it seems there's a lot of FPGAs there. That's very interesting. All right, guys, thank you very much. Yeah, the YouTube transmission is still showing some alarms. It seems that it's complaining about keyframes sequence. So it still needs some tweaks, and so hopefully we're going to improve for the next times. 7312. Thank you very much for this excellent DATV net today. 7312 from Brazil, Papa Yankee 2 Radio November. Oh, by the way, I should pass to Tom, Zulu Radio 6 Tango Juliet, Tango Golf. Yeah. Sorry, I'm confused here. Too many things to control at the same time. Go ahead, Tom. Papa Yankee 2 Radio November. A great net today. Amazing. Great presentations. I wish to say thank you to
Ed, Papa Yankee 2 Radio November, here from Zulu Romeo 6 Tango Golf. And yeah, great net, definitely been enjoying it. And a few notes, I might have mentioned a few things before, so just excuse it. Leon, yeah. The accuracy on this one it doesn't need to be that accurate from what I've been playing with. You know, I spend a lot of time on there trying to get, you know, that it's not like the Oscar 100 beacon where you've got a constant beacon where you can just go tweak the dish and that. You know, I have to wait for various satellites, and I spend a lot of time, and you know. It seems that it doesn't need to be all that accurate to actually receive quite a good signal. Might just be because of good antennas, or you know, whatever the case might be. But I found that the best trick was to basically point it at the sun, and then I created a part of the Node-RED program. I basically added a thing where it would basically just go to the sun, and then not by looking at the sun, but the idea is then basically to look at the shadow that the antenna was throwing on the ground, and then detecting there how accurate it was going to be. But yeah, no, I'm really enjoying the satellite stuff, and I think that's why I enjoy a lot of your videos around the tracking as well. That's you know, lots of things that overline there. Ed, thank you for you as well. Yeah, very interesting about you know, below the horizon there, and I think it'll be good to see how much further it can be pushed there. And I enjoyed your cartoon picture there. We all want a converter like that. Mark, wow, that Phonoscope is quite interesting. It's like Leon said there, there's quite a few, I can imagine quite a few places where that can be used. I'm definitely going to look up a bit more on that, and it's you know, not that I'm, you know, into the watch side of things, or you know, it's very interesting, but you know, it's not something that I know a lot about, but that watchoscope is definitely something that I can see playing with a bit. And yeah, the rotator with the last ball bearings, I was very careful trying not to lose anything there. Also took tons of photos while disassembling it, just so I can make sure I can put it back together the right way. Node RED, for you guys who don't know it, it's essentially, it's like writing a program in Python or something, but it's all visual. And so you basically just, you take blocks and you wire them together in it, and it's got quite a lot of support for a lot of things if you want to do something on a network or serial port or whatever. And I find it becoming quite a nice tool in the shack, where you can, if you have interfaces to various radios and signals and relays, we always have things that needs to be switched or automated one way or another, and the Node RED works quite well for that, because you can make changes on the fly quite quickly, and like I say, the support is quite well. One of the things I want to do is actually, it's called Node RED obviously because of the nodes, and one of the nodes that I want to make is a node that will actually control the ICOM radio using the CIV protocol. So that's one of the things on the to-do list there as well. And Bert, the guy you're referring to is DATV Mike in Germany. He makes all those telemetry applications. He was actually the stuff he does is a big inspiration for my station as well. I also, being a developer, I'm also keen on developing telemetry apps like that. So that long term, that's definitely part of the goals there. But I've been following his work for quite a while. Henry, like everybody said, the very first good transmission. That's minor things that you can easily solve and improve, or not solve. There's no problems. It's just improving your station from there onwards. But for a first transmission, I think it was perfect. So welcome aboard, and keen to see you more on the air. And then Mike, it's very interesting on your DIY, your satellite tracker that you've made there. I've got a few project ideas in mind for something similar as well, but that'll have to wait. I don't want to start up too many projects. And then also very interesting stuff on that CNC. I'm still contemplating getting one of those for myself, or maybe Gary is around the corner for me, so it might just be easier to go to Gary and do what I want to do there. Anyways, thank you everybody, and thank you all for the feedback on the Leo station. Hopefully I didn't bore anybody too much. I'll be back with more updates in the future, and it was a fun net, and hope everybody has a wonderful day and a wonderful week, and we'll see each other on the net again next week. Over to you, Mike. G0MJW. Oh no, wait, sorry, I'm skipping a few people here. Bert, over to Bert. Bert, no, sorry. Martin. G4FKK here from Zulu Romeo 6 Tango Golf.
Yeah, okay, Tom. Oh, it is working. G4FKK. Yeah, I was getting confused there, Tom. I think, hang on. I thought it was me next. Then I thought it was Mike after me, but it's not. So anyway, we'll get there in the end. Anyway, very interesting. What a great net. And Bert, your power supply controller is fantastic. I'm definitely going to put that on the project list. Nice to see the AM transmitter. And 18,000 brake horsepower. That's one hell of a watch, I must admit. And the transverter looking good. Yeah, we had terrible storms here, as Mike said. Well, terrible storms. Gary, the biggest gust they measured was on the Isle of Wight at Needles, so it's on the edge of the Isle of Wight, and it was 122 miles per hour. So 190, as you say, is probably, does that convert? Was it 1 point? I don't know. But yeah, that's quite a powerful wind, and it got so powerful here that it moved the dish. I have managed to get the dish. I'm dB down on what the dish normally gives me on the beacon, but I managed to get it back roughly in line. And also I have at the bottom, well, 2/3 of the way down the garden, I've got a 60-foot aluminium pole strapped to a tree, made of 5-foot swaged sections of thick wall aluminium, which has been up for, well, as long as I've been in this house. That's 27 years probably. And that's now it's bent really badly. So the aerial, which used to be 60 foot above the ground there, is now probably about, I don't know, 40 foot. It's really bent badly. And the weather's still a bit unpredictable here, so I'm not going to fix that until later. But yeah, so it was pretty rough. And Henry, Zulu Sierra 6 Mike Charlie, well, welcome. And I'm really impressed with your setup there. As Leon was saying, most of us have had all sorts of disasters, usually on air and usually on this net. And that went very smoothly. And so we'll be watching with interest to see how things change as you go through the experience. I'm glad to hear you're a bassist as well. The distinct lack of those around this neck of the woods. Jim, you'll have to speak to Jim, G7 November Tango Golf. He's our bass player for the British Amateur Television Club. So you'll have tales to tell. I've been watching some of the bass players on YouTube. There's some very, very good players, I have to say, and quite amusing as well, because they all think bass is much better than guitar, 6-string guitar. Quite right too. Mike, I loved your tracking box, proper Ediston tie-cast box there. So, and obviously it still works. And the panel looked, well, from what I could see of it, looked really good. So I'm so tempted. I wouldn't get away with it at the moment. I'm building this workshop out in the garden, and then one of the first things that will go in it is one of those, just to do front panel. If that's all it does, that's more than enough, Mike. So and it looked really good. Sorry to hear about your tragic storm damage and the wheelie bin falling over. Very sad. And yeah, the Dolphin is quite a thing. When I was given mine before I had any interest in digital amateur television, I was given it by a chap who was one of the ones who was taking them out. I was going to take the output devices out of it, but when I started taking it to pieces, it's so beautifully built that I saved it, and I'm very glad I did. I get 70 watts of clean, well, 30 dB shoulders, maybe a bit less than that. I can squeeze 70 watts of GB3HV type DATV when it used to work on 70. And I wonder what the half-watt laser will, presumably, will that burn wood or plastic? I don't know, but interested in that. And yeah, Gary, using well, there you go. Your suggestion of using the Watchoscope for cardiac use. Leon's beaten us to it by looking at his quail eggs. And yes, wish Natalie a safe trip home, and hopefully the weather will be a bit better then. I wonder if in some of your factories whether you produce what they call clockmakers cast brass. It's a much yellower colour than modern plate brass, and evidently I need a bit to make a wheel for one of the clocks I'm working on. Apparently it won't do at all by the connoisseurs if you just use modern brass. You need clockmakers cast brass. I wonder if any of your factories produce some of that. Yeah, Leon, thank you for the information on the prediction tables and also the live ones. That's very interesting. And yeah, your quail egg phonoscope was very impressive. My dad used to have one of those watch graphing machines that you mentioned. My dad was a proper professional horologist, and I remember that thing turning up probably in the 1960s. It was all valves, which I thought was fabulous. And this thing, as you say, used to clack away and produce great sheets of paper all over the shop. And do you know, when I was showing the watcher scope, or the sensor, what have I done with my mouse? There it is. I thought, damn, I haven't put the screened wire on. And the reason it's got that funny wire is that the first transducer I used was one of these, which is a very old crystal earpiece. You probably remember them. And I'd put a 3.5mm jack plug on the end of it, and rather than go through that rigmarole, I just cut it off and soldered it on the end of the transducer. You would notice that. Good spot. Ed, yeah, I like your comment about the Dutch PAs. Yeah, PAs. One of my favourite shops is the Dutch RF shop. They do some good PAs, although it's more difficult to. Well, it's not more difficult. It's more expensive to get things from Holland these days, since we stupidly did things. Anyway, I won't go on that. Tom, okay about calibrating the rotators with the sun. Good plan. And yeah, thanks for the info on Node Red. The interface on the screen looked a bit like GNU radio, so I guess it's something similar. And I shall have a look at that. One thing I was just going to quickly show you, that watch movement. This is what it was showing on the watcher scope originally. So that is very, very bad. So the dots are all over the shop. It's losing 845 seconds a day. The amplitude's quite low. Beat error rate's quite good. And if I go back over to the live watcher scope, this is the same watch movement and what it's doing these days. So I was quite pleased. That was my first watch. I only bought it, as I say, to practice taking the tiny, and it really is tiny. I thought my surface mount components were a bit tricky, but nothing compared with some of those screws that are like bits of dust. Bye. Mrs. FKK is just off out to see our daughter. She's saying goodbye, boys. Right, that's enough from me. So I shall put it round to you, Bert. And thanks, Gary, for running the net. And of course, you've already thanked all the relevant people that make it possible. It's really a real treat to be able to do this. Round to you, Bert. Papa Alpha 3 Alpha Oscar Delta. Also a real treat, as usual. G4FKK. Cheerio, all.
Yep, we're in business. Okay, yeah, that nice earpiece, Martin. That's skin color. Eh? I remember that. I used it when I started with a shortwave listener, somewhere, in the end of 1960s. Long time ago. And it was also exactly the same. The skin color, the pink one. Yeah, if you can call it pink. Anyway, about pink, yeah, I got also the same color, also the purple ones. Yeah, that's something different than always the green ones, or the blue ones. But maybe next time I will choose another color. Maybe they will change it to red or something like that. Or maybe there is already a red. I don't know. Okay, it was a very interesting net today. Thanks all for the info, and it's always nice to learn something from other people. We'll say have a nice day, nice weekend, for what it is left than the weekend, and hopefully the weather will go to the better, because it's still terrible. It's the whole day already raining. No, that's for the next time. See you next time, and have a nice week from Papa Alpha 3 Alpha Oscar Delta.
Yes, Bert. Sorry, I didn't acknowledge you on the last over. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I certainly hope we will see each other more often on DATV. It is interesting. I didn't comment on what I saw when you presented it, but it seems like you're very much into power amplifiers and such like. So you're certainly a person that I will tap into when it comes to my power amplifier. But in any case, thank you very much. Very interesting to everybody. I really, really enjoyed the net today, and I quite helpful to everybody that's on the net, specifically DL's blog spot. So guys, I'd like to say thank you very much for allowing me on today. I do certainly appreciate the time, and I certainly will be on a
By the way, the 1mm mill was, I was using a feed rate of 1mm per second, and I went it down to 0.5 millimeter per second, and I think that was still a little bit too fast. But when you do that and you're taking 0.1mm chunks, you can spend all day milling a panel. So my advice would be have it in some place where you can't hear it, because it's not quiet. Okay, so round to Gary. 7th everyone, another great net, and catch everyone next week hopefully. G0MJW.
Okay, Mike. Yeah, you're quite right about the noise. Sounds like one standing on the cat's tail. G0MJW, this is ZS6YI, now going to wrap up the net. I just want to also thank Ed for the streaming. I found it came through very well there, Ed, despite the alarms. And I also want to thank Olaf, Papa Echo 1 Papa Mike Delta, for streaming as well, and I think he streamed on the BATC site as well. And also welcome to India 2 November Delta Tango, who was listening as well. So with that, I'm going to close net, get out of the hot shack. I've switched off the aircon. It gives me a funny frog in the throat. We wish everyone well, lovely week, and we look forward to next Sunday. So this is ZS6YI now closing the net and opening up the frequency for general use, as we used to say on the old AM nets. 7-3 everyone.